Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Connection podcast series. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the dynamic between Rey and Kylo Ren and how it will impact Rey's hero journey in the Star Wars Sequel Trilogy. I'm your host, Lee, and today I'm joined by two members of the Star Wars Connection, Monte.
Hello.
And Kirsty.
Hi, great to be here.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about Rey's character in depth. And what we know about her so far is that nobody really expected her to be the hero here. So going into the release of The Force Awakens, during the promotional period, they were basically promoting Finn as a hero. So they were showing him with the lightsaber, and they were showing bits of like Finn dueling Kylo Ren. And I personally walked into the theater thinking Finn would be the Jedi. And then it turned out it was Rey. So what does it mean that a young woman is the hero figure in this story as opposed to the hero being a dude? Does that mean anything for her character and for the story? Lots of questions. So let's start at the beginning. In the introduction of The Force Awakens, Rey appears to us masked, which is very fitting because her background is very mysterious. And in many instances, when characters first appear wearing a mask, it's an indication that they are not as they seem and that their true self is hidden. And Rey is an orphan, and they keep repeating that she's a scavenger, just a scavenger. But she has these surprising qualities, like she's a fantastic pilot, and she's very gifted mechanically. And she gets along with droids. And we know from reading Before the Awakening that all of this is self-taught. So what else can we say about Rey, Kirsty?
Well, first, I was kind of in the same boat as you regarding Finn with the marketing. That really got me as well. And a friend of mine said, I think the girl's going to be the hero, the main character. And I thought, well, if she is, that's going to be a very different story. Because with a heroine, they kind of go on a bit of a different journey than a hero. It's not quite the same as it would have been with Luke's journey. So I think the reason that Rey's been so popular, I mean, you see a lot of disagreement in the Star Wars fandom, but there's no disagreement about people loving Rey. Everyone loves her. And I think the reason is that they've just done a fantastic job creating her as the ideal heroine. She has all these wonderful qualities. She's compassionate. She's brave. She's charming. I'm sure Daisy Ridley helps there, but she's just written really well. So she has a lot of optimism about her, especially considering how tough her childhood has been. You know, she's been basically raising herself on this horrible desert planet with this junk boss kind of leering at her and making her hungry. And it's, you know, really upsetting to see that. But she has this real optimism about her that's so beautiful. And at the beginning, you can kind of see that with, you know, she really says to BB-8, my family are going to be back for me one day. She has this maybe delusional idea that her family are going to be back for her because that's all she has to cling on to. But once she kind of gets roped into the adventure and meets Finn, you can really see that she's compassionate about other people when she does get a chance to form relationships. And it's those relationships that really push her through the journey. And I say that she's really compassionate, but when she first meets Finn, she's, you know, accusing him of stealing Poe's jacket and being quite aggressive with her staff. And that's another thing that I really like about Rey. She has this kind of darker side to her. But it's always manifested as a loyalty, that she's concerned about someone else's well-being, and it comes from a very selfless place.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I just wanted to add, like, I think a lot of people talk about Rey like she's a demure desert flower, but this is a tough chick. I mean, she shot at the stormtroopers without any compunction whatsoever. And she didn't even know them. She attacked Kylo Ren. She was doing it, like you say, out of a good place to protect her friend. So that tells us that she's fiercely loyal. But there's also that kind of like anger that went into that. That is something important because we know anger leads to the dark side.
Yeah. And it makes sense given how she's, you know, had to live. She's would have had to defend herself and be fierce and fearless. To
survive in Jakku, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And that must have been really difficult. But I think you're right. I think some fans, in their rush to love Rey, are kind of glossing over a little bit about darker qualities. And inevitably, we're going to see those come into play a bit more as she matures. So that's going to be interesting to see how she continues to be received.
Right. And we know that Daisy Ridley is a little bit worried about that. So interesting. Let's talk a little bit more about Rey as a hero. So we know that the blueprint for the central story in Star Wars is basically Joseph Campbell's Monomyth. And in the Monomyth, the word is pretty much self-descriptive, mono meaning one, myth. The idea based out of Jungian psychology is that there is a collective consciousness that we all share, and where the hero's journey is kind of ingrained into that, and that's why we all respond to stories like Star Wars the way we do. I mean, we fiercely love Star Wars, all of us do, certainly, who are here talking right now, but in general, and these stories, you find them across cultures and through different time periods because of that sense that it's ingrained in the collective consciousness. So in the original trilogy, the story of Luke follows the Monomyth pretty recognizably. So we see the idea of Luke being in his ordinary world. He gets a call to adventure from the person who's going to turn out to be his future mentor, Obi-Wan, and he initially rejects that call. Then he crosses the threshold, he meets the goddess, who turns out to be Princess Leia. He enters the belly of the whale in the trash compactor scene. He gains a new set of skills. He faces temptation, kind of gets connected with the darkness within himself, and ultimately masters it, atones with his father, and becomes master of the two worlds. So there you have the whole Monomyth contained over the course of the 3 movies. And not surprisingly, we can recognize the blueprint of the Monomyth early on in The Force Awakens. So we find, in Rey's arc, we find her in her nice montage of her ordinary world. We see her going about her scavenging duties, trying to get some food, preparing her like amazingly fast rising bread that everybody loved. And that, those few moments show us everything we need to know about what her days are like in Jakku. So we know that every day is like the next and the one before it, and she's scratching off days on her wall. So right away, we know this is her everyday life, and there are callbacks right there to Anakin and Luke Skywalker, because we know she's waiting for her family. So she's an orphan in the desert who's an amazing pilot and a gifted mechanic. It's very kind of heavy-handed, and I think that led some people to conclude that Rey might be Luke's daughter, or like the reincarnation of Anakin, or whatever. I mean, so, we've already talked about that in depth, and I'm sorry, you were going to say something, Kirsty?
Oh, no, I was just agreeing with you that I think people maybe mistook those callbacks, or that positioning of, yes, this is our female protagonist, look how similar she is to the former heroes of Star Wars. I think people took that as maybe a sign of her parentage.
Right. And I think that is, I don't think that's correct. Just my opinion, and I think we'll have to wait and see for sure. But I think the movie clearly points away from the idea that Rey could be the daughter of Luke, and it's pretty logical when you think of it. I mean, she met Leia and Han, and nobody said anything about a daughter, long lost daughter of Luke. But whatever. We already talked about that in the podcast, the Rey's origin theories explained, which is very good and I highly recommend. But the key point that comes up in thinking about Rey's parentage in the movie is that she's told the belonging she seeks is in her future, not in her past.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really key for Rey to come to accept, and maybe she still hasn't accepted by the end of The Force Awakens, but she kind of just got swept away with the call to adventure. But you can really see how important relationships are for her, just in the way she forms them with Finn and BB-8, even as she's still concerned about the relationships that might be coming back for her. So, even though she leaves Jakku because, she feels compelled to help BB-8 get back to the Resistance with this map. She knows it's important, even though she doesn't know who Luke Skywalker is. It's kind of when she boards the Millennium Falcon with Finn that she's crossing that threshold into adventure. And at that point, she's still insisting that she needs to go back to Jakku, even though Han Solo offers her a job and kind of becomes a mentor father figure to her. She's still got it on her mind that this is a temporary break in the otherwise monotony of her life on Jakku. But once they get to Maz's castle and she hears the call to the lightsaber and experiences that really visceral, frightening vision, that's when she has that official moment And you can see this in parallel with Luke's, where he says, you know, I can't go on, I can't go to save Leia, I have to get back to my life here. Rey says, no, I don't want any part of this, and runs out of the castle and straight into the forest, where, ironically almost, she comes face to face with her destiny. She's kind of thrust into the adventure there, whether she likes it or not. And that's the part where you really do see a divergence with the hero's journey versus Rey's heroine journey, because there are some differences. Joseph Campbell, when he was creating the Monomyth, he was very clearly doing it for a male character, and for, you know, psychologically, he considered that different from the heroine's journey. And he actually said that he didn't believe that heroines should go on journeys, because they should always just be waiting for the hero.
Oh, gosh.
It's very sexist, but, you know, different time and all that. But because of that, other writers and psychologists have developed models that are more suitable for heroines, and you can see these in, you know, everything from the Hunger Games to Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So they have certain moments that are recognizable and can parallel with male heroes. So things like the call to adventure, the refusal of the call. But it's when Rey enters that forest that she kind of goes into the, I think, is that when it goes into the third arc of the movie? It's when it's later on than you might think, but it's considered the heroine's descent. So it's the most dangerous part of the movie. She gets picked up by Kylo Ren in the forest and taken to his shuttle and off to Starkiller Base, which is obviously a very different environment. It's icy and cold and lifeless, and it's a direct contrast from the forest that they met in. And I feel like those different settings are very important to what happens at those times in the story.
I feel it's very important as well. Reason why is because, in my opinion, I think the Force kind of represents growing up, adulthood, whereas the desert still represents childhood, if you will. All the previous heroes from the trilogies grew up in deserts. That's what it represents. Anakin grew up in a desert, so did Luke, so did Rey. Part of the reason why she kept wanting to go back to Jakku. She wasn't ready to grow up. It's part of the hero refusing to call, if you will. I mean, part of the reason why is the Force so important is where she first meets Kylo. And it's the first time she comes face to face with her sexual feelings, if you will. First time she's ever felt sexual attraction. And it's very overwhelming for her. Literally, she's swept away, i.e. the bridal carry scene. In fact, it's very close to Aiden's kidnapping Persephone and taking her to his lair. And in my opinion, in the interrogation scene, it's her, I guess, her first taste of sexual experience, if you will. I'm not sure if that's the proper way to put it, but it's, you can even compare it to, I guess, Persephone taking a pomegranate seed. She gets a taste and she wants more and more. Even after she gets a taste, she still keeps going back for more. She reads his mind in the cliff scene. When they're fighting on the cliff, she goes to his mind to draw more power. She starts acting more like him. I mean, truth is, it was a very, very changing experience. First time she goes to the forest, it's very lush, green, full of life. It's very much enchanting, very exciting. Then she goes back, it's very icy, it's very cold. It shows she has changed. Physically, intellectually, she's still a woman, but emotionally, she's still a girl. It's the reason why there's such a contrast between the first time she goes to the forest, before she meets Kylo, and after. She's definitely changed now, but still kind of in the same place, in the limbo, if you will.
Yeah, and you know what? You mentioned sexual awakening, which is always a very controversial topic, right? And I think that that aspect of the interaction between Kylo Ren and Rey has made a lot of people uncomfortable when you look about, you read the conversation online. It seems a lot of people have picked up on a sexual undertone in their interaction, especially starting off in the interrogation scene, and then later on in the duel. And I remember reading early on a review from, I think it was, I don't remember what magazine it was, that mentioned that there was like a sexual energy in the duel, and I think a lot of us picked up on that. And it's very interesting that it's there. It speaks about kind of a male-female dynamic, and there's a sense that they're equal, parallel, on different ends. We'll talk more about that going forward, but let's talk a little bit more about that connection that Rey and Kylo Ren share. So up until now, we were following a pretty standard Monomyth pattern. We were talking about the callback to Luke and Anakin Skywalker, and things were sort of proceeding as we expected. But the moment that Rey and Kylo Ren meet up in Takodana, as you indicated, Monty, it's just very interesting. Things start to happen, patterns that we're familiar with and tropes that we expect to see are there, but they become like abruptly subverted. So Kylo Ren is obviously the antagonist. He's presented to us that way from the first moment that he makes his like amazing entrance to rival Darth Vader's, right? He arrives and we know that he's the bad guy, right? And like Rey, he's also masked when we first encounter him, and that's a sign that he's not who he wants us to think that he is. He's hiding his true self, and the fact that he's covered from head to toe in dark layers, he's also concealing, I think, a vulnerable part of himself. But still, he is the antagonist, and so it's very surprising when you have these two characters come together in this lush green forest, as you say, Monty. There's a very mystical sort of fairy tale feel to the dynamic that you see unfold, and that's not what you were expecting to see. So I've heard people say, like, there's like a little Red Riding Hood motif here where Rey is like going through the woods and Kylo is like chasing after her like the big bad wolf. There's a moment where in the novelization where Rey thinks, I've seen this man in a daydream, in a nightmare. I mean, that sounds like right out of Sleeping Beauty. And then you have this like hideously transformed royal who's a beast, you know, and you have this like lovely peasant girl who is destined for greater adventures than you would expect. So definitely the fairy tale mystical subtext is there, and as we know, that tends to usually have a core of sensuality, sexuality, like kind of disguised underneath. So very interesting stuff. Do you have any more thoughts about this, Monty?
Well, also the class contrast. I mean, he comes from a royal background. As far as we know, Rey just comes from, a pauper background. She starts off as a scavenger. He's from royal blood. That's another fairy tale trope.
Yeah.
Two different people from classes getting together. That's stuff you see in fairy tales all the time. I can't think of any top of my head, but I think the Beast in Beauty and the Beast, he started off as a prince. Belle was just a regular girl. And Sleeping Beauty, too. She was an ordinary girl, and a prince gave her a kiss to wake her up. I mean, even in Greek mythology, how many times have you seen gods fall in love with ordinary women? The ordinary women have their children. Star Wars very much has aspect of fairy tales, if you will, as well as Greek mythology and all sorts of other great genres.
Yeah,
That's what makes.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was thinking about something you were mentioning earlier about the fact that it happens in a forest where they first meet versus a desert environment.
Oh, yes. Well, to expand more, let's see. Well, I think it kind of harkens back to like when she first touches the lightsaber. That's in her. You could kind of liken that to puberty, if you will. Sort of like the first time girls experience that, she runs into the forest even further into adulthood, because growing up is something you can't run away from. And here she meets Kylo. Kylo is the big reason why she's starting to feel this sexual awakening. She comes to him and she just runs smack dab into him, and he literally carries her away. It's so overwhelming for her. And, well, that's all I can think of off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, like, was anybody else shocked when Kylo Ren just, like, up and swept Rey and took her off? Like, I remember sitting in the theater and being like, what is going on? That was such a turning point, and to me indicated that things were going to be unexpected going forward.
Yeah, that was the moment where you realized that the story was going to go in a different direction, because, just imagine Darth Vader doing that, for example. Like, it just wouldn't happen. And actually, I know maybe this is a bit of a divergence in the topic, but the first time when Poe was talking to Kylo and he was making jokes about, okay, who talks first, that seemed strange as well. It was like, is this the same kind of villain that we were actually led to believe we were going to get? Is it Vader 2.0 or is it someone different? Because I can't imagine anyone joking in front of Vader like that.
Yes. I think that's a great point. I think they were trying to tell us, this is not your usual villain. This is not what you're expecting to see. get ready because you're going to be surprised here.
Yeah, the moment when he carries her away is obviously, I mean, that's a very well-known trope. This, carrying a maiden across the threshold of your ship, it's loaded. It's something that we've seen in mythology and art for thousands of years. So they're not being subtle there.
Right, and I think they're telling us that Rey and Kylo Ren's stories are intertwined. And that's why we're talking about him, because, he's going to inform her arc just like she's going to inform his. They're going to develop together, in a sense.
It's very much like yin and yang. I mean, if you look at it, the lives are already started to get somewhat intertwined. Her future's kind of tied to his past. I mean, if you look at the end of the movie, she had a lot of remnants of his old life. She had both the approval of both his parents. She had Chewbacca, Ben's uncle, if you will. She has this old lightsaber, because I believe that was his lightsaber at one point.
Right.
I mean, her future is already is intertwined with his past. It's already kind of a sign that she's going to play a role in redeeming him, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, I think some people are still not quite sure about where this is going to go, and for good reason. Obviously he's the villain in The Force Awakens, and he does terrible things. But it just, based on how the narrative seems to be set up, the fact that he does something so terrible as killing his father in the first film, it kind of leads you to believe that that's something that Rey is going to be a part of, in terms of them influencing each other and hopefully her influencing him for the better.
Well, they already are starting to influence each other to a bit. I mean, if you notice at the end of the movie, she was already starting to become more aggressive. She would start to fight like him. She started to walk like him.
That's really interesting to see how he's influencing her that way, but she's influencing him a different way. They are kind of yin and yang, kind of bouncing off each other's energy.
I feel with Kylo's being influenced by Rey, it's more slow and subtle. With him, it's more immediate that he's an influence on her. I think we'll see more of her influence on him in the sequel, if you will.
I think that's a great point. I think that, especially the fact that it's been hinted at, or there have been spoilers, that Kylo Ren's going to be spending some time with Luke and with Rey, possibly on Ahch-To, and we've talked about that at length in other podcasts. The fact remains that Rey is occupying Kylo Ren's, spot beside Luke. Like, that was him. So I'm sure he's going to look at her and think of and reflect on himself. And through getting to know each other, there's still that whole topic of whether there's going to be a force bond of some kind, right? But definitely they're going to be in a position to understand each other, unlike any other two characters, because they share the force, right? They're trying to grow as, Jedi, or, whatever it is that Kylo is trying to be. I still don't know. But their paths are intertwined in that way. And I think they have a lot to learn from each other. And it will be interesting to just watch that happen.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how Luke influences Rey's hero journey as well. Because, again, coming back to the idea that he could have been her father, I know lots of people were hoping that she would be a Skywalker and she would be Luke's child. And I think the reason for that is because they love Rey, and they saw that she wanted to find her family. Or wouldn't it be wonderful if she happened to be Luke's child and they were reunited at the end of the first film? But because they met at the end of the first film, I just don't think that is how the story would go, because then it's almost like her story is wrapped up at that point. She's found where she belongs already. And then where does the conflict come from after that? Without assassinating Luke's character, he'd have to do something really awful then if she was going to be presented with any more challenges. Otherwise, it would be happy families after that.
Yeah,
there's really no room for that. Worlds could read. Oh, ladies first, you go.
Well, I was going to talk about something completely different, but still within the topic. We're talking about Rey's family, and what do you guys think about Finn and Rey, and how this informs Rey's hero journey going forward? So it really seemed, I think that their dynamic changed throughout the movie. I think initially I was one of the people who read some kind of like a flirtatiousness in their interactions when they first met, when they were kind of trying to figure each other out. But then as their adventure progressed and they became like part of a team, I just saw their dynamic change and go through like close friendship. And then towards the end, especially when the moment when he comes and gets her on Star Killer Base, and she says to him, "You came back for me." That was what her family was supposed to do. So for me, Finn is essentially just stepping into the role of family for her, and I think that they're going to be bonded for life in that sense, just like siblings would be. And I think that there's been a lot of confusion in some circles when talking about who the real hero of the trilogy is going to be, because of Finn and how he was promoted early on. And I think he will be a hero for sure. I just don't think he will be the hero. And I think that became clear the moment that Rey just pulled that lightsaber to her. That moment was like the game changer for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I love their friendship. I think it's brilliant. It really warms my heart because they're both each other's first friend. And they're obviously going to be connected to each other throughout the trilogy. But I do think that, I know that I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, The Force Awakens was just another version of A New Hope. It was just a rehash." I think the reason for that was because J.J. Abrams was quite cleverly playing on some of the expectations, especially with regards to gender. So when Finn goes to rescue Rey, and we know at the end that she doesn't actually need rescuing, she can rescue herself and does end up rescuing Finn. It's kind of a subversion of that trope that we saw Luke go to rescue Leia in the Death Star. We think, okay, Finn is the new Luke. He's going to go and rescue Rey from Starkiller Base. But she ends up being the one to call the lightsaber after he's been defeated by Kylo Ren, and then, defeating Kylo herself, much to her own surprise and his, and then escaping with Finn to take him back to the Resistance. So it's quite clever the way that they've subverted these tropes and kind of played on people's expectations of the movie. But I'm just not sure if everyone realised that, if that was happening. And that's not to say that Finn's not a hero. He obviously is. But when she says to him at the end, when he's, in the hospital bed, she says, we'll see each other again, I believe that, and then leaves to go to Luke. You kind of get the sense then that they're either not going to see each other for a long time, or they're both going to be greatly changed by the time that they do, or both. They've both got a lot of growing up to do, because it is a coming-of-age fairy tale. That's what Star Wars is. You get the sense that they're going to be in different places by the time they do meet again.
Yeah. No, I fully agree with that. I think that they both have to change, and that's the sign of of a fully fleshed character with an arc that has something to say. Because I'm sorry, I don't want to offend any Poe Dameron fans, but the fact is Poe Dameron is a fully realized character. He's a hero 100%. He has no doubt about who he is, what his role is, what he wants to do. He wants to hit him with everything he's got, right? And there's no question mark about him. There's nothing that he needs to do differently. He's just going to proceed in the same trajectory. But for Rey, for Finn, and for Kylo Ren, that's just not the case. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the three of them appear masked to us in the beginning. I think that's a sign that what we are seeing is just on the surface, that there's a lot more that's going to happen, and that they're going to change and maybe be very different people by the end of the trilogy, or maybe not. We'll see.
I mean, I would say that we're definitely going to see them grow and become different people, but hopefully still retain what people love about them in the first place. So it's a balancing act for sure.
Yes. So one other thing that we have been, that we wanted to talk about was the duel between Rey and Kylo Ren. I think that we've touched a little bit on the subject already about what it means as far as like transformation and them facing each other. But what do you guys make of the cross lightsabers? The fact that Rey pulled the lightsaber to her. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that was the moment where she really did accept the call, and it was out of anger of what had happened to Finn, how Kylo had treated him, and that she'd just seen him kill Han as well, who he said, you feel like he's the father you never had, and that was obviously a hugely important moment for her and him. So that's the kind of point where, you know, there's no going back now. She's got the lightsaber, she knows that she has the Force, and kind of has to slay the dragon that's in front of her. That's how she feels.
What about Kylo Ren's reaction when, I have to say a little bit of a tangent, but one of the things I love about this movie is that they have these little moments where the audience can basically take the place of one of the characters, because the character is reflecting exactly what the audience is feeling. So the first moment where I saw that happen was when Kylo Ren froze the blaster shot and Poe Dameron walks by it and he's like looking at it in awe. Like, that was me in the theater, right? And the second moment where that happened was when Rey pulls that lightsaber and Kylo Ren is just staring like in awe, like he can't believe it. And there's something of that look, like recognition. I think that's the moment where I recognized Rey as the hero. And I think Kylo Ren did too. And I think that they're going to be connected going forward. And I wanted to talk a little bit about what makes them kind of contrast each other in a way. Like they're opposites, but they're aligned. They're parallel. We've talked about yin and yang, right? And things that they have in common that are surprising. Even their like the clothes that they're wearing. Like Kylo Ren's got this awesome man gown. But if you break it down, the components of it are kind of like Rey's, except that they're dark and hers are white. Or, well, kind of dirty, but still. But the point is that they're opposites, but they're perfectly aligned. They're symmetrical. And I think that it's going to sound weird, maybe, but I think they're both together, like two sides of the same coin, the coin being Anakin. So I think of them as the Anakin of the trilogy. So if you look at Rey, she can be Anakin in The Phantom Menace. So you've got this orphan in the desert, super talented, just finding out what the Force is about. And then Kylo Ren is Anakin in Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Sith, where basically he is a like fallen Jedi. He's been corrupted by the Emperor, who in this case is Snoke. So for Rey to develop more, she needs to look towards the future. Maz Kanata is basically playing her oracle here, just like, according to the Monomyth, just like Yoda was an oracle to Luke, Maz Kanata is an oracle to Rey. So it tells her the truth that she needs to hear, which is your family, the people you're waiting for, they're not going to come back. The belonging you seek is ahead. So Rey has to look towards the future to develop, whereas Kylo Ren is completely lost right now. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's suffering. He's being torn apart. To find himself and to progress and develop, he has to look towards his past. So if she's looking forward, he's looking back, are they going to meet halfway? That would be the really interesting thing. And if they do, are they going to become like a stable Anakin who doesn't kill younglings and does bring balance to the Force in a positive way, like maybe by defeating Snoke? That's, what I'm wondering, and I'd love to see if that would happen.
In the grand scheme of things, you could be thinking that's what he's going to finish what Vader started when he had his soliloquies to the helmet.
That's a great point. And maybe he doesn't even know what Vader started, like what did Vader start? Maybe he doesn't know. I'm just very curious about what it is that Kylo's trying to do. And we certainly will talk more about that in another podcast. But that is a great point. Maybe that could be what Vader started. Vader did bring balance in a way, but now the Force is unbalanced again because there's only one Jedi left.
Truth is, I think it'll take both of them to balance the Force. I don't think one person can do something that huge and dynamic by themselves. It takes two. Harkens back to the yin and yang. No one person can do it all by themselves. What one person's weak at, the other person's strong at. That's what makes Rena Rey so compelling, if you will. Like you said, she's constantly looking to the past. He's looking to she needs to look forward. He needs to look in the past, and in the middle they'll meet. That's how they gain their strength. But one's good at, the other's bad at, and they perfectly complement each other.
Yeah, I think that even people who are like completely opposed to the idea of a potential love story between these two characters for good reasons. Some people, it's hard to tell, but some people are really pro, others not. And even people who hate the idea of a love story can see that there's like a symmetry between them, that there's definitely a connection there that is going to be important going forward. For me, Kylo Ren is not Rey's true enemy. And I think that the fact that she already defeated him twice, she defeated him in the interrogation room, and then she totally kicked his butt in the duel, which was another unexpected, subversion of the trope. And that already happened. And so is he going to be her big bad? I don't think so. I think it's going to be Snoke. And by the same token, I think that Kylo Ren's true enemy, he might think it's Luke, but it's actually Snoke. So in a way, yeah, they're going to be probably sharing in that and trying to. I would love to see them just join together and fight this dude, but who knows? We'll have to wait a couple of years to see.
Yeah, I mean, Kylo Ren thinking that Luke is his enemy is kind of the same as Vader thinking that Luke's his enemy, when it was actually the Emperor, and then he made that decision to sacrifice his life and everything that he'd been working towards because he loved his son. So I wonder if we're going to see something similar.
Yeah, love plays a part. It's an important part of any epic story, right? And especially in Star Wars, we've always had a love story. So does it have to be Rey and Kylo Ren? Not necessarily, but that's certainly an avenue that the story can take. We know that if Rey is the hero, there has to be love somehow entering into the picture. And we already saw in the original trilogy that it was family love. Like you say, it was a father and son, right? And then in the prequel trilogy, we saw like this incredibly dramatic and tragic love story. And some people have the idea that in the sequel trilogy, we could see that done right.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Anakin and Padme's story, or at least how it was executed. And maybe part of that is because it had a tragic end, but it was also more of a tell, don't show, whereas I think they're going in more of a show, don't tell direction now, which is, it's more challenging, but it's probably more rewarding for the audience as well. But if you look at the way compassion is so crucial to a hero or a heroine's journey, at some point, Rey is going to have to feel compassion for Kylo Ren. Like, he is her designated antagonist. Whether he remains so or not, we don't know for sure, but either way, she has to feel compassion as part of her journey. So it's just going to be interesting to see how they get there.
And since the compassion is already flip-flopped, in Force Awakens, he had compassion for her. He held back when he fought. He didn't want to hurt her too badly, yet she would get very rough with him. She'd go into saber duel. She slashed his face even though he was helpless. Now it's flip-flop. She might have compassion for him. Kylo might be mad, take the gloves off, and just go at her hard. So already they're flipping around some.
Yeah, they are, again, subverting the expectations, because it might not have been obvious to everyone in the audience, but he obviously was treating Rey differently from how he treated Poe, how he attacked Finn, but then fought her in a way that he was trying to offer to teach her rather than kill her. So by the end of The Force Awakens, yeah, Rey has already defeated her designated villain. So where does that leave us? Because in A New Hope, Luke didn't even face Vader. He saw him kill Obi-Wan Kenobi, so that was kind of a parallel with Kylo killing Han, but then he didn't face him until Empire Strikes Back. So you do get the sense that, okay, where are they going to take the story now? Because they can't have her just keep defeating him. That's not very compelling.
It's very dull and boring storytelling, too.
Yeah, and I think another key thing that is important for Rey's arc is the fact that Kylo Ren is very unlikely to remain a static evil figure. He's not, like, I would be very surprised if Snoke, shifted in any way from his, like, ominous and evil designs, but Kylo Ren is already doubting. He's already conflicted. He's already feeling the call to the light. And we've seen some gorgeous art, by the way, that we'll talk about more later on. But the fact is that Kylo Ren is very likely to change in some way. Either he's going to become worse or he's going to go towards the light, which is probably the more likely thing, right? But his progression will inform her. So she is facing Kylo Ren as her villain right now in The Force Awakens. But going forward, as he changes, that's going to impact her arc as well. And I'm really thinking of Kylo Ren saying to Snoke, "By the grace of your training, I will not be seduced." It's almost like he's asking for it. Like, anybody who says that, it's like, really? You probably will be. And every time that Kylo Ren and Rey interact, it really does not go the way Kylo Ren intended. And it's actually kind of funny too, because he comes in thinking like he's this big bad dude and, you know, this poor girl, whatever. He's a powerful Force user. He's totally going to read her mind and get the information that he needs. And it turns out that his deepest insecurity is pulled from his mind. So he ends up being kind of the victim in that scenario. And in the same way, in the duel, everything we thought we were going to get is subverted. So I think going forward, if Kylo Ren has any intention of seducing Rey to the dark side, which will probably be what Snoke wants, right? I think that the one who's in real danger of being seduced is Kylo Ren.
Yeah, I mean, when he said that to Snoke, it did just seem like a huge foreshadowing moment. It kind of reminded me of when Vader says there's no conflict.
Right.
It's just, okay, sure.
Yeah, and there's actually that spoiler about Kylo Ren arriving in Ahch-To. It just has been very intriguing and has given rise to some very interesting speculation. And I'll talk a little bit about a very interesting theory from one of our contributors that we'll examine more in depth later on. In another podcast, we'll talk about other theories. But the idea of the Garden of Eden. And we talked about how in the Secret Filming Locations podcast, we talked about how they probably filmed scenes in Lissard Estate in Ireland, and then that area describes itself in their website. They talk about themselves as the Garden of Eden, right? And so we heard the spoiler that supposedly Kylo Ren and Rey are having a conversation, and Luke becomes enraged, and he turns into Hulk Luke, right? And he starts blowing up huts. And that sounds kind of like an angry god. It sounds like, you know, all-powerful Luke destroying things, angry god in the Garden of Eden. And then you have Rey, who Luke is mentoring, we're guessing, right? Probably thinking that she's going to be in his image, kind of like God and Adam. And then you have Kylo Ren, who's like the serpent, and, you know, the evil who's coming into this Garden of Eden, trying to seduce Rey to the dark side. So it's a very interesting setup. And as we know, there are themes of, you know, Christianity and religious kind of undertones in Star Wars anyway. So that would be pretty cool. I don't know if that's the direction, but I was very intrigued by the idea of Luke getting upset because Kylo Ren and Rey were talking, and some people even speculated that they might have been making out. I don't know if we were talking about how it might be too soon to see anything like that in Episode VIII.
I'd be very surprised if that happens, honestly. Yeah. At least at that stage. Because, yeah, they both have a lot of character development to do before they could even consider something like that. But it is interesting to think about, like, what could he be saying to her that Luke wouldn't want her to know, or what would they be discussing? Because we've heard that other spoiler about Luke asking Rey to kill Kylo and her not wanting to, which surprised me, honestly. I mean, I always take spoilers with a pinch of salt, especially this early, but that really shocked me in terms of whether Luke would actually do that, because it seemed out of character, at least from what I understood of Luke. What do you guys think?
I'm just gonna wait for the movie to come out.
Where's the fun in that?
No, I agree with you. I think that that is such a big leap from the Luke that we know and love. That is many people's favorite character. His main thing is that he's compassionate, that he is forgiving, and that he believes in the goodness of people. So to hear that he would ever say to Rey, "You have to kill Kylo Ren," unless it's like candid camera or it's a joke or a prank or something, I don't imagine Luke ever saying that. But we'll have to see in the movie. I would be very interesting to see what the relationship between Luke and Rey will be like as mentor and trainee. That would be cool to.
I don't think it's going to be plain sailing. I think maybe people were hoping that it would be because, so many people love Luke and he's great. But there has to be some kind of tension or some kind of conflict between them as, whether they're going through training or he's telling her about Jedi philosophy or whatever it is. I mean, if you look at the way that Luke and Yoda and Obi-Wan had their relationship, he wasn't just going along with everything they said. He actually chose not to. He went off to Cloud City to save his friends. So maybe this spoiler kind of shows that Rey is making her own decision. She's not going to kill Kylo Ren because she sees the light in him, and Luke, for whatever reason, doesn't anymore. Maybe it is kind of showing that Rey is the new hero and her decision is going to be the right one.
Or it could be a test for her character.
Oh, you mean like he's tricking her? Like he doesn't really want her to kill him?
Yeah, it could be he wants to see how angry she is. Maybe to set a dark side. Or do you not want to kill to see if she still has compassion, to see if the light is stronger than the dark?
Well, that's interesting. Kind of like a Duel thing.
All right, guys. So we're coming up at the end of our time. Do you guys have any final thoughts on this very interesting topic of Rey's journey as a hero of this trilogy?
I'm just kind of interested to see what happens next because she has cycled through so much of the journey already. I feel like there's going to be a bit of regression in the next one where she's on Act 2, there's no one else around, and she's had such a crazy adventure in however long The Force Awakens was supposed to run for, 1 or 2 days. A lot happened in a short space of time, and she spent so long in one on Jakku. She was, there for so long, doing the same thing every day, and it must have been kind of a shock to be swept away in this adventure, and now she's probably got time to reflect on it. We might see a bit of regression where she thinks, do I want this? Do I want to be a Jedi? Maybe I should go back to Jakku. So I think we're going to see her struggle with her new life.
I don't see her wanting to go back to Jakku. I think at this point she firmly realized she can't be a kid anymore. I think she's more weary of the world now. She's ready to move on with her life. She's going to take a step forward. She's going to get knocked back some because in most stories, in the second part, that's when the hero faces the big trials. They get taken down, and the third one, they have to fight their way back up. That's what makes the hero great, the struggle. If she struggles in this one, that's what's going to make her great in the third one. She comes out winning and get in the second one, where's the triumph really? She had nothing to overcome. I feel things will get dark for Rey, but she'll shine through because that's who she is.
Yeah, I think aside from wanting to see what the dynamics will be between Rey and others, including Luke, Kylo Ren, and Finn, and even BB-8, whatever, I still am very intrigued by the idea of her temptation. What will be her temptation? Will it be Kylo Ren, as a lot of us are speculating? Or will it be something darker? Will she find out that she has dark origins, that maybe her parents weren't so nice, and that's why they left her with Angkor Plud? Maybe she'll find something that will make her question where her loyalties lie. And we know that loyalty is very important to her. So I'll be very interested to see how they handle that, facing the temptation and how she will master it going forward.
Yeah, I'm still completely undecided about who her parents are or whether it will matter who they are or what happened to them. But whatever it is, it's probably not going to be easy news for her. It's going to be something that challenges her rather than is exactly what she was hoping for because of what Maz said, that the belonging is ahead, not behind. So it's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And what it is, if it's her family who tempts her, if it's something that happens to Finn that she then feels like she has to make a sacrifice for him, or if it's someone like Luke or Kylo Ren who struggles and she feels compelled to help them.
Yeah, very interesting. And, we've been promised something very different going forward, and I think that they've already made sure that's going to be the case by choosing to make Rey the hero as opposed to any number of other people who could have been. I think whatever path her story's going to take, it's going to be different and it's going to be exciting. Well, that is it for us today. We'd like to thank all of our contributors and, of course, our viewers. We hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you don't miss any of our upcoming podcasts, and you can also follow us on Twitter. We like feedback. We like to answer questions. Leave us a comment in the comment section, or you can email us at StarWarsConnection09@gmail.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you.